All right, welcome back to my living room. I see it's a little dark in here. It's getting ready to storm outside, and the light coming through the windows isn't real good. So we just did the Pieces of Brocade exercise set. And the version that we did comes from Lam Chuan and his Jim Jong, or Standing Like a Tree practice. We'll talk about Standing Like a Tree later. That one's a little bit trickier. 8 Pieces of Brocade, there's a really good way to get started with basic stretching exercise, but also mindful movement. Now, why is mindful movement good? What is it useful for? I think looking at mindful movement, we have to be aware of what movement is in general. So gravity always goes down, right? Gravity always pushes down. So no matter what you do, intentionally or not, you're doing a form of training. Sitting at a computer watching a YouTube video, gravity is pulling down on you. If you're in a forward flex posture, the weight of the head being forward in front of the center mass of the body is putting strain on upper trapezius muscles, the muscles down the back. A lot of times the core is not involved. You're just letting your body do whatever it does. Maybe the knees collapse. But that is when you're driving, when you're sleeping, when you're moving. At all times, you have this downward force of gravity on your body. So I like practices like the 8 Pieces of Brocade because we're practicing anti-gravity. Now, what do I mean by that? So there are arches in the body that are naturally sort of perpendicular to gravity. There's the arches in the feet, the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, and other muscles that literally help us lift up. If you think about the typical old person posture, forward flex, holding a walker with this very sort of stereotypically choppy movement, they've lost rotation as they ambulate. They've lost structural integrity in the trunk and the ability to stack their blocks, meaning get the hips under and engage the glutes, extend the trunk, and you have these structural muscles engaged. So functional training really, I think, is training that can help us get back to using and relying on the deeper structural muscles and help us get tension or excess tension, unnecessary or not useful tension out of some of our prime movers. Now, a standing 8 Pieces of Brocade doesn't tick all the boxes, but what it can do is help us try to integrate and move through a lot of the body as a unit versus, standing bicep curls, where a lot of times you might not be focused on how you're doing it. So the quality of movement in Qigong, specifically 8 Pieces of Brocade, is just as important as the quantitative part of how much you do. So let's take our first 8 Pieces of Brocade movement, starting from the ball, floating up and pushing up. I really like this one because there's a couple of very important points that we can work on in that movement. First is engaging the arch of the feet, engaging the pelvic tilt, and engaging the shoulder girdle. Starting from the ball, sinking down, the first thing I have to do is engage the feet on. Pushing up through the feet, the weight shifts forward slightly so my toes can engage, keeping the knees unlocked, tucking the hips a little bit so that you're activating the glutes and lower abdomen just to get into position. Here, extended trunk, tucked under, working upper body mobility a little bit. But it's really this push that I like. This push extending up, up, up. Just like that good morning stretch. The technical term for that is pandiculation. It's like when a dog or a cat will stretch when they get up in the morning. It's engaging long lines of muscle and connective tissue through the body. And again, trying to get the idea or get the motor memory to fire together. And again, looking at that as counterpoint to traditional weightlifting that colloquially tends to be about isolated joint contractions. So it's not just pushing the hands up like a shoulder press. I'm literally pushing the body up engaging the arches of the feet, the pelvic floor. When you contract the lower abs, it helps engage the pelvic floor, and the shoulder girdle, which we'll talk about in a second. So what does it mean to engage the shoulder girdle? In this case, I'm trying to depress the scapula or pull the shoulders down the back a little bit as I press up. So if we can take 2 fingers from one hand, put it on your shoulder, and keep that shoulder down as you extend upwards, you kind of have this downward or brace or locked in, sort of like kettlebell training, where you're locked in line with gravity, using the structure of the body more than the prime mover. So deep press as I push up. And really all the movements of the 8 pieces of brocade have that. So if you can think about and really play with how can I keep the whole body engaged. Now, I like 8 pieces of brocade for that specifically because in a lot of stretching, it tends to be very dead. And I don't want it to be. I want you to use this in yoga. I want you to use this in your regular stretching program, this idea of engaging through the whole body, engaging from the center outwards to enhance the activities that you're doing, whatever that might be. So for yoga, the tendency, or when I'm in class, I feel like people know these poses. So they're in triangle, I'm in triangle, and that's it. I'm just hanging out here. But if we can extend and reach, engage the feet, engage the back foot, engage the trunk, stretch through the arms, it becomes a more vital pose. And also in yoga, I can't seem to get away from this desire to lock the joints. I have to lock my back leg in Warrior One. I have to lock or engage the front leg in whatever that's called, intense Western side stretch. We can have the legs bent, focusing on the core, focusing on the extension, instead of this lock. And again, I think Qigong is a good functional way to do that, because one of our principles is never lock the ears. I'm extending out, flexing and pushing, but not locking. I'm extending up, flexing and engaging, but not locking. So hopefully you can find some of these ideas useful in Qigong. The video that I did before, which I'll link in the description below, was primarily about the physical movements and maybe some postural points that go into using it. My hope is that you can learn it and do it on your own without needing a video or without needing an instructor. And hopefully you'll find it useful too. What I want the secondary videos or discussion videos to be about is how to make it work for you, or how to change or look at your philosophy of movement a little bit differently to make it more functional. So again, thank you for joining me. I hope that you find the videos useful and informative, and I will see you next time.